Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Under the Curve, the podcast where we take some of the most complex economic ideas in the world and, well, make them make sense. I'm your host, and today's story is about three economists who decided to treat poverty like a science experiment. Their work didn't just earn them a Nobel Prize, it rewired how we understand development itself. Because here's the wild part: the revolution didn't start in a lab or a lecture hall. It started with worms, actual worms. In a small Kenyan school in the late 1990s, economist Michael Kramer ran an experiment that would end up changing economics itself. The setup? Simple. Half the schools got deworming pills, the other half didn't. It sounds basic, almost too simple, but that's the genius of it. When the results came in, they flipped the script. The kids who got the pills were healthier, stayed in school longer, and years later, they even earned more as adults. That one tiny study on something as unglamorous as worms became the seed for a movement that transformed how economists fight poverty. For decades, development economics was so obsessed with grand theories. You'd ask me, why are some countries rich and others poor? And the answers would sound like a philosophy lecture. Institutions, governance, capital accumulation, trade openness. Kremer, Banerjee, and Duflo looked at all that and said, what if we stop guessing and start testing? Their big idea wasn't a new theory, it was a new method, the randomized controlled trial, or RCT. Take a group of people, split them randomly. Give half an intervention, like school meals, microloans, or mosquito nets, and see what actually happens. It's the same logic as a medical trial, but applied to human behavior, incentives, and economics. Simple, but radical. Because for the first time, economics could measure real life in real time. And here's where the story gets beautifully messy. Banerjee and Duflo weren't running these experiments from fancy offices. They were out there, in villages, schools, markets, figuring things out as they went. They dealt with power cuts, translation errors, and occasionally, goats interrupting focus groups. Esther Duflo once called herself a plumber, not a theorist, because if theory is the blueprint, experiments are the pipes. And someone has to get their hands dirty making sure the water flows. And that's what they did, again and again. Through the Abdul Latif Jameel Poverty Action Lab, JPAL, they built a global network of field experiments. Hundreds of trials across continents testing everything from free school uniforms to chlorine dispensers to mobile savings. They weren't just asking, does aid work? They were asking which aid, where, for whom, and why. But of course, not everyone was cheering. Some economists rolled their eyes. Okay, cool, it worked in Kenya. But will it work in India, or Peru, or the Bronx? That's what's called the external validity problem. What's true in one place might flop somewhere else. It's kind of like TikTok trends. One sound goes viral in New York but totally flops in Seoul. Poverty, like culture, doesn't copy-paste easily. And sometimes the results were disappointing. Remember microcredit, the golden child of the early 2000s? It was hyped as the silver bullet for poverty. Then Banerjee and Duflo tested it. Turns out it helped people smooth out small bumps in life, but it didn't dramatically lift anyone out of poverty. No miracle, just nuance. And that was the point. They showed that poverty isn't one problem with one cure. It's 100 small barriers stacked together, like a game of Jenga, where pulling one piece doesn't bring the tower down, but fixing many can finally make it stand tall. Kramer once compared this to something called the O-ring theory. It's named after the tiny rubber seal that caused the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. One small failure and the whole mission falls apart. That's what poverty is, one missing piece. Clean water, trust in a bank, good teachers, and everything else can crumble. It's humbling, right? Because the more these economists tested, the more they realized progress isn't one giant leap. It's 1,000 small, stubborn steps. When the Nobel Committee awarded Banerjee, Duflo, and Kremer in 2019, they didn't just honor three economists, they honored a mindset shift. They made economics more human, more curious, more grounded in people's actual lives. They proved that evidence can be empathetic, that data can listen as much as it measures. And honestly, that's kind of beautiful. Because maybe the biggest lesson from this experimental revolution is this: you don't have to change the world in one shot. You just have to test what's right in front of you and make sure it actually works. This is Under the Curve. Next time, we're fast forwarding to the 2025 Nobel Prize. And trust me, this one's wild. It's all about how economists are rethinking everything, using next gen data to answer questions we didn't even know how to ask 5 years ago. Think of it as Black Mirror meets Bloomberg. The future of economics decoded. Until then, stay curious.